Well, the Economic Freedom Fighters wrapping up their second National People's Assembly, where the party saw an overhaul of its top leadership structures. Advocate Dali Mpofu declining nomination to be chairperson, but he didn't gather enough support. This is to contest the deputy presidency position. He joins us in studio to talk about the role and his future in the organization, as he now no longer occupies any kind of senior leadership position, at least not on paper, and what exactly his future in the organization then is. Earlier, before we went to break, you said part of the reason why you were contesting the deputy president's position was to send a message to the EFF members and to society. How much of that was also a message to Floyd Shivambu and to Julius Malema, because those were two of the main positions where at least there was certainly no question about whether or not they would be contested?
Well, I suppose, no, it's not so much a message to them personally, because fortunately, I happen to know, because we've worked so closely for such a long time, that they don't need that message. I mean, we have been at pains as the top six to send this message ourselves. If you've listened to all the press conferences building up to this conference, you know, the president of the EFF has been literally at pains to say, even when you guys asked us when we were in Nazareth 3 weeks ago, who's available, who's not available? I said, no, we're all available. There's no position that's reserved for anybody. So it's not a lesson that they need particularly. Or neither do some of the members of the EFF, as I've said. Some of them understand that. But to send it broader, the message to broader society and to the broader membership was more important than to specific individuals.
Have you been wrapped over the knuckles internally, particularly for the role you play as an advocate, the kind of cases you take on? We've heard the leader of the organization simply, as of course, talk about it and the role that he feels, the impact he felt it had in terms of your contribution to the party. But do you have conversations about why you're taking on a case for the ANC or whoever else it may be, where perhaps the EFF is in opposition with, for whatever matters or whatever complex stories it might be at the time?
No. I mean, quite frankly, nobody could tell me what kind of case I should take or not take here. But of course, the types of cases that I took, which the types of cases you're talking about, actually would have had a more positive impact generally on the EFF. It's another complicated story that we can't go into now. But let's take, for example, when I did cases for NDZ and I did other cases for CR17. Yeah. All that in reality created a particular atmosphere in the opposition. There's nothing that could have hurt the EFF. Actually, if anything, it would have helped the EFF in those kinds of cases. So no, there's no discussion like that. The issue has always been, which is why I didn't go to Parliament. For example, you might know that when we did our parliamentary list, I was number 3 on the people who were elected in our elective conference to get to Parliament. But I couldn't go because I have to do this job. And that's one of the things that I had to have a conversation with myself. You know, at some stage, either I had to go to Parliament and leave my legal practice, or leave the legal, the EFF leadership positions and concentrate on my legal practice. So I've decided to do the second one.
I know it must be something that you reflect on quite often, but how do you manage the conflict of interest that some of these scenarios that you put yourself in presents, not just to yourself, but I think by virtue of the kind of position and role you occupied in the EFF? Certainly, you bring up something like this, you know, being part of the representatives for the CR17 campaign. While it might be an independent case, certainly I would think that there must be some kind of case that can be made there for conflict and the extent to which it is ethically right to do something like that.
No. If there's any conflict, quote unquote, as I say, it's the conflict of working, you know, trying to juggle and literally just physically, it's a difficult thing to do. In fact, some of my colleagues at the bar just Every day they ask me, how do you do it? Because they know how difficult it is to be a senior counsel on its own without all this. But it's the passion. It's something, I love both the jobs. I love the politics is in my blood. I've been doing this for more than 40 years. And maybe that's another thing. The level at which I've operated in politics is informed by my experience, and it's very difficult sometimes to articulate. But as far as the cases are concerned, you must remember that I don't go out there and say, CR17, please come to me. So whoever, whether it's Supra or Mapelo or the CR17 group in the Free State, they are the ones, there are more than 1,000 advocates in South Africa. They come to me because they want a particular expertise. For example, some of them know that I was party to drafting the ANC constitution and shaping it. So I understand it more than half of the people in the ANC. So when there's a conflict around the constitution of the ANC and how it should be interpreted, they will come to me because they know that I know it in fine detail. And I'm sure even for them, they have a conflict whether they should come to me or not. But if they want to win the case, then they will come.
So that conversation then is never one that you ever have to think of?
Absolutely. No, except in passing, if I get a brief like that, I might share with people, you know, I've just been approached by Supra to represent it. But it's never like, okay, what are we going to do, or what is it going to do there? No.
And within the EFF, how much consultation do you have in the organization? And I'll use this past weekend as an example. There was, of course, that decision taken to ban and not accredit certain media houses. SANEF is arguing that that decision was in breach of the Constitution. Did the party take advice from you on a matter such as that? Because it is a legal and constitutional matter.
Well, firstly, SANEF is talking nonsense. How is it a breach of the Constitution? The Constitution says we have a right of association and a right of disassociation. We don't want to associate with people who don't portray themselves as journalists. SANEF never learns. SANEF came to our offices. I remember this meeting. We sat with them when we said we do not want to associate with ANN7 because they represent a faction of the ANC, and they're not journalists, really. They came to us. We had to school them about what a journalist is. And 6 months later, when the Gupta leaks came out, they were telling us in dark corners that, oh, we didn't realize you were right, and so on. The same thing is going to happen now, because we are not prepared to, I can call myself a journalist tomorrow and then go to the ANC press conference. They will say, no, you're just in EFF mode. Yeah. So the fact that I call myself a journalist doesn't make me a journalist. It's what I do, what I practice. And we have journalists who are critical of us, who have called us all sorts of names, including yourself, were there. So if this was all about running away from scrutiny, we would have then said, well, the media is not invited.
But surely the example of yourself is, of course, one that would be questioned, because you're somebody who's played quite actively in the political space. Here you're talking about investigative journalists who, quite frankly, have brought some important stories to South Africa, including the very same Gupta story that you're talking about, because they were amongst the first to release some of those, the leaks that were presented. And so, to the extent that their work has been justified even by some of the awards that they've received over the years, surely the fact that you are saying that they're not journalists cannot delegitimize the years and the careers work that they've put together of portfolios that go beyond the EFF.
Yeah, but that argument is sterile, because they might be legitimate in your eyes, but they've delegitimized themselves in our eyes. So we have a right as well. You know, the Constitution also applies to us. So we have a right to say, you may not attend our functions. By doing that, all I'm arguing, Cathy, is that you can't then say we are curbing media freedom. Because if we were curbing media freedom, we would have just said the media is not accepted. But we're saying these specific individuals, because they have behaved in a particular way. And that's it. We're not going to change that position. Until society, because sometimes, remember, it's also our role to take society along with us. One day, it might take a year or whatever, people will realize, or there might be another leak that shows that these people actually are in the pocket not even just of the ANC, but of a faction within the ANC. And we're not prepared to subject ourselves to that, I'm sorry.
So, to the extent that, of course, there has been some kind of fallout, and it certainly caused a lot of debate within the media sector, do you think that there's a way in which it could have been handled differently, or do you simply believe that this is going to be your stance going forward, that is this now a permanent thing where they simply will not be granted access to any of your events?
No, it's not a permanent thing. It's something that we are prepared to talk about. We've said, actually, I think it was September or so, SANEF had a workshop. Come and participate. Otherwise, I would have gone. There's no permanence or anything like that. But you're asking the wrong person, because when I was at the SABC, I actually didn't ban I banned SANEF itself, because they had taken a particular reactionary position. And I said, well, SABC journalists are no longer going to be members of SANEF or participate. And even that was resolved at a later stage, yeah. But you see, as activists and revolutionaries, we have to take certain activist positions and defend them using the very same constitution that you are citing. We can't subject ourselves, for example, to racism. Let's say somebody came to our press conference and called us the K word. And then if we say, no, you can't come tomorrow, then you say, no, media freedom. No ways. It doesn't work like that. We have the freedom to associate with those people who correctly practice their craft and do their craft. We do our craft. We can't, I mean, if you interview me now and you insult me, I'll walk out of here right now. So you know what I mean? And it's your freedom to insult me, but it's also my freedom to walk out.
All right, I think I've got just under 2 minutes to insult you before our producers end this interview.
Okay.
But let's talk then about what's next for you in the EFF. What role do you see yourself playing in the organization, being an ordinary member?
Cathy, well, it's the most, I'm telling you, if it's going to be like this, it's going to be fun. The last 2 days was the most liberating, because, as I say, I have a free role now. There are many things that I'm thinking of. I can help with fundraising. I can help. There's this whole thing about uniting the left parties. There's the international thing that Cathy will be doing. There's a whole lot of things that can be done. Political education and all sorts of things. Yeah, and of course the legal. I want to strengthen the legal department of the EFF, because we've now almost become an advice office. You know, I want us to have lawyers even in the provincial offices to assist our people, because people have nowhere to turn. Whenever they are turned back at SASA or different places, they come to the EFF.
So we certainly won't be hearing about you leaving the organization anytime soon.
Oh, no, certainly not. No. This is the only, when we said this is the last hope for our people, we really meant it. There is, if this organization fails, then our people must just forget it. It will mean that their conditions will be as dire as they are forever.
All right, let's leave it there for tonight. Advocate Dali Mpofu, he's the former chairperson of the EFF there, and as you heard, he might be out of the leadership structures, but he's certainly not going anywhere. He's staying put in the organization, and that's where we'll wrap it up with him for tonight. I'm back in a moment, and we'll take a look at the day's top stories.